Modern day caveman is making a comment here about recruiting coming up. I expect a lot of possible future OU recruits to make a decision once they see how we stand against Texas. You think there's anything to that?
I mean, there's always battles between Oklahoma and Texas all across. I mean, I'm not quite sure if the comment's very specific to what the head-to-head looks like this year from Oklahoma versus Texas, or just the trajectory of the season this year between Oklahoma and Texas. But I think there's always a lot of kids that Oklahoma and Texas are going head-to-head against, and that'll continue to be the case. And it's the 49-0 loss. It's damaging without a doubt. I think it's damaging, and I don't know how damaging it is, but I mean, you can't really say it was too damaging from a recruiting perspective, since Oklahoma, still landed in the top 5 from a recruiting class. But I think going forward, if this is something that looks like could be a trend in terms of um, for Oklahoma, but I think we talked about this a lot last week, Mark, and I think it's not necessarily just. This is one of the biggest years that I think Oklahoma has had, that will have in quite some time, for different reasons, right? I mean, we've talked about here, through the years, where Oklahoma has a good opportunity to win a Big 12 championship and potentially put themselves in position to play for a national championship, or a playoff spot, or whatever that might look like. And I think the expectations are different realistically, right? I mean, I think the expectations are, you coming off of a 6-7 season to right the ship to a certain degree. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people. There's always, and there's some on here, I'm sure, but there's always these diehard Crimson Colored Glass fans that feel like, okay, this is a team that has a chance to go undefeated and get to the playoffs. And but I think realistically, as you look at this team ushering themselves into a new era next year, will be the fact that you don't want a 7-6. You really don't even want like an 8-5 type of season going into the SEC, where you got the challenges that you would always face going into the SEC. It's a different brand of football. It's a different level of physicality that these teams bring game in and game out. But when you're if when you're at a position where you're not really competing at a high level in the Big 12, and then you move to the SEC, that's a that could be a big challenge, and it's going to be a big challenge regardless. But I think, looking at that, it's very important for Oklahoma to take a step up this year, and certainly, if I think you never know what these. I mean, I don't think anybody at this time had any kind of idea that TCU was going to win the conference, and go to the playoffs, right? So you never truly know, what's going to happen. But they don't necessarily. You wouldn't appear to think that, okay, Oklahoma's a team that they're the odds-on favorites to win this Big 12 and get back to the playoffs. But I think just seeing that improvement this year is going to be just extremely critical for the program going into the SEC.